For Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think. Well, WrestleMania has come and gone, and to the surprise of absolutely no one, Cody Rhodes appeared and challenged and defeated one of the hottest acts in WWE right now in Seth Rollins. But the big story coming out of WrestleMania weekend was what happened after the match. Cody Rhodes, at the end of Saturday's show, met the media, and of course he was asked why he left. He tried to be vague and he tried to tiptoe around his feelings and his response, but he made an inference to money and creative control, and then he finished by saying there were just some personal differences that we could not get past. But if you've watched AEW from its inception, and even before, if you followed Cody Rhodes from the moment he left WWE as Stardust to today, then you can pretty much see what's going on here. Here's what I think. Cody Rhodes saw Drew McIntyre be touted as the next big thing. And it never came to pass, as Drew McIntyre ended his first WWE run as a member of the 3MB, the three-man band, with Jinder Mahal and Heath Slater. And that group was put together for the purpose of promoting Heath Slater. So he saw Drew leave WWE, go out on the indies, work wherever, whenever, against whomever, improve himself, make himself better, and then come back to WWE and be one of the top guys. If you look at WWE right now, except for Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, the top guys in the company are Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. Period. And Cody saw this. And Cody figuring, I'm Cody Rhodes, son of the American Dream. I'm not happy with my spot in WWE. I can go out on the indies, and I can make myself better, and I can become more marketable, and I can come back and do the same thing. Plus, I have the Rhodes name. So, he went out on the indies. He went to Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. He went to New Japan. He went to TNA. He went to Ring of Honor. He went everywhere, wrestled wherever, against whomever, just like Drew McIntyre. Won some championships along the way, just like Drew McIntyre. And he became more marketable, just like Drew McIntyre. But a funny thing happened on the way back to WWE. He met Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. They became friends. They became members of the Bullet Club together. And they had a conversation and they decided, you know what? Let's just start our own company. We can get this billionaire in Jacksonville, Tony Khan, and he'll front us, so it won't be that we're starting a company and lacking for money. Because he owns the football team, we could get TV right away, and we can do this. And Cody goes, you know what? Yeah. In Cody's mind, he's thinking, I'm a Rhodes, so I'm going to be the top guy. Kenny Omega's great. The Young Bucks are great, but they don't pass the airport test the way I do. And for those of you who don't know what that means, the airport test is what some of the guys in the business say to help determine stars. If you can walk through an airport and people recognize you on sight, then you're a star in professional wrestling. And if you cannot, then you are not. If certain guys walk through an airport, Joey Janela, Brandon Cutler, Sean Dean, if some of these guys walk through an airport, nobody would know who they were. But if Cody Rhodes walks through an airport, with all due respect to Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, if Cody Rhodes walks through an airport, people are going to know who he is on sight. At least so he thought. So he figured he'd be a top guy. And he would make top guy money. And he would be in top guy storylines. And then Chris Jericho shows up. And then Dean Ambrose shows up in the form of Jon Moxley. Which is not so bad, because there's still room at the top. Because again, with respect to Kenny Omega and the Bucks, they've never been in WWE. They've never been at WrestleMania. They've never been top guys. So you figure Jericho's here, but he's old. Ambrose is here, but he's calling himself Jon Moxley. So people are going to take a minute to figure out who he is. And I'm still Cody Rhodes. I can still be a top guy. So what happens is Jericho wins the title, and then Moxley wins the title. And Cody decides, I don't want to be the world champion. I'll be the secondary champion, and I'll make the secondary title the top title. So the TNT title is created, and Cody wins it because he cannot challenge for the world title. And so then some weird things start to happen in the company. Kenny Omega becomes the first guy to win 2 different titles in the company. But Cody Rhodes becomes the first guy to win a title twice. So who's the top guy? Maybe it's Jericho. Maybe it's Moxley still. Jericho goes from being a heel to being one of the most popular and over guys in the company, to where the fans, when he comes out, his music hits, the entire house starts singing his song. So maybe Cody Rhodes sees, okay, I'm not a top guy anymore because these guys are becoming stars. They're starting to pass the airport test. And then you start adding Miro. And then you start adding Luke Harper. And then you add Lance Archer. And then you bring in Jake Roberts. And then you bring in Tully Blanchard. And then you bring in FTR. And now you brought in Daniel Bryan or Bryan Danielson. And now you brought in CM Punk. And then you're bringing in all these guys. And there's no more room at the top. Adam Cole is there. The only 3-time Ring of Honor champion. One of the first guys to win the NXT championship twice. All these guys are starting to show up. Jay Lethal is showing up. And now there's getting to be less room at the top. And on top of that, guys who Cody brought in, guys who were going to be the young guys who were going to fill this space years from now. MJF, Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, Jungle Boy, Britt Baker. They're all becoming stars too. They're doing interviews on mainstream television. They can be picked out of an airport. So there's no room at the top now. So that became an issue for Cody. But Cody still felt like he was a top guy. So he still wanted to be paid and treated like a top guy. So Cody's now the first guy to win a title 3 times. Because he was the first guy to win a title 2 times. But there's no room at the top. So that became a problem, a point of contention for Cody. On top of that, Cody still wanted to be paid like he was the top guy. And they're looking at Cody going, okay, at a point in time, that might have been possible if you had been willing to negotiate in good faith. But then when you add Daniel Bryan, and when you add CM Punk, and you add Jay Lethal, and you add Adam Cole, and then you bring in Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, not so easy to pay a top guy like a top guy because you may not be the top guy. It was never a situation where Tony Khan was saying, I can't afford it because he's a billionaire. It was, can I pay you like my starting quarterback if you're my 3rd string running back? For those of you who understand football. Can I pay you like my ace starting pitcher if you're a middle reliever that only pitches 2 innings every 3 games? For those of you who understand baseball. Can I pay you like my all-star as if you're LeBron James when you're only Alex Caruso, for those of you who understand basketball and are Laker fans? That became a point of contention. But the other point of contention, the real point of contention, on top of the money and the positioning and the power, was creative control. Cody Rhodes wanted to be a sports entertainer in a professional wrestling company. And the way you know this is when you look at what Cody Rhodes was doing. Cody Rhodes had a Gemini personality. What that means is it's not an astrological thing. What that means is he wanted to be a professional wrestler, but he also wanted to be a sports entertainer, and AEW wants to be a professional wrestling company. But Cody Rhodes wants to have a feud with Anthony Ogogo, and he wants to come out and have a weigh-in in the middle of the ring and stand on a scale in his underwear and see who weighs the most and then have a little scrum, have a little fight. Cody wants to have contract signings like they do in WWE. Cody wants to have the celebrity matches where him and Red Velvet take on Jade Cargill and Shaq. Cody wants to do sports entertainment things, but he also wants to be a professional wrestler. He wants to put Andrade through a flaming table. He wants to bleed in his matches. He wants to do moonsaults off the top of cages. He wants to do all of these things, but he also wants to be a sports entertainer. I got a TV show. I'm the star of the Go Big show. My wife has a YouTube show that's becoming popular. I starred in a few episodes of Arrow on the CW. I am a media personality. I'm a sports entertainer. I'm a star. I passed the airport test. But I also want to be a professional wrestler. I want to bleed. I want to get cut. I want to get burned. I want to go through tables. I want to do all these things. But maybe I'll do them with Shaq instead of Kenny Omega. Maybe I'll do them with Snoop Dogg instead of John Moxley. So Cody had a dichotomy within himself because he wanted to be a top guy, though he would never be AEW champion, and he wanted to be a sports entertainer, though he also wanted to have the hardcore wrestling matches, and he wanted to be paid like a top guy, though the company that he was an executive vice president of brought in Jericho and Dean Ambrose and Jay Lethal and Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson and CM Punk and Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish, while also hosting Kenny Omega. So you've got a problem. You cannot bring in all these guys and then still say you're the top guy. You cannot want to do sports entertainment and do weigh-ins and contract signings and matches with celebrities and then go out and have hardcore wrestling matches with Andrade and Luke Harper where you're bleeding and going through tables and being set on fire. You can't have it both ways in a company that's not trying to have it both ways. So when you talk about money and you talk about creative control and you talk about differences that could be gotten past, this is where your problem is, Cody Rhodes. You wanted everything. You wanted the cake and the pie, and you wanted the ice cream and the pudding, and you wanted it all, and you wanted it all at once, and you wanted it all for you. And the way you win is be a part of a team. Tom Brady has never been the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And the reason for that is because he's always willing to give money back so the team can bring in other top guys so that they can win. Tom Brady's been in the league 22 years and he's won 10 Super Bowls. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that Tom Brady has won as many Super Bowls as half of the years he's been in the league. Because he gives so his team can be better. Cody, you cannot take from your team and expect your team to be better. So now you're in WWE. Now you've had your WrestleMania moment and you've defeated one of the top guys. So now what? What's next? Do you chase the world championship? Do you still try to do the Go Big show? Does your wife's show, Shot of Brandy, become a TV show instead of a YouTube show? What happens next for Cody Rhodes? That's the question, and that's what we'll have to watch. Because only Cody knows what he truly wants from his career. And when he gets it, will he be happy with it? Because a lot of times, the thing that you think you want is not the thing that's best for you. And once you get it, you realize that. Remember to like and share this video and subscribe to this channel and follow me on Facebook at Eric J on Sports 1 and on Instagram and Twitter at Eric J on Sports. And I invite you to visit my new website, the link to which is down in the description, and tell me what you think. And for Eric J on Sports, I'm Eric J, and this is what I think.